folks like Representative Vivian Flowers, phenomenal leadership, and other members of the Arkansas Legislative Black Caucus and the Arkansas Black Mayors Association. So I'm excited. This is a once-in-a-life opportunity for Pine Bluff and the other communities that were authorized for this type of funding. But one thing you should know, this is your project. Your project. It's up to you to tell us where the issues are. You're going to hear things called feasible solutions down the road after these plans are developed. Those feasible solutions are based on the input that you provide. And so we're looking forward to getting this input from you tonight and in future meetings. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this project.
Good evening. And I too am very excited to be here with you tonight. Mayor, thanks for the invitation. Thanks for your leadership. NRCS, I don't know how many of you have even heard of our agency before, but we're a federal agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And we're charged with providing conservation solutions to people and communities to help protect our natural resources and at the same time help feed a growing world. So that's our charge. And we're different than many federal organizations in that the work that we do is almost always because somebody needs it, somebody asks for it, somebody requests it. Since our inception, since the Dust Bowl days back in the 1930s, we've been working hard to address local problems. In fact, when we were created, it was the very same time that local conservation districts were created. And they are local units of government. There's one in every county here in the state. And part of their charge is to identify the local problems so that we can bring federal resources to help solve those problems. And so here in Jefferson County, we have conservation district personnel that are co-located with our federal staff as they are across the state in most counties. So in just a bit, you'll hear from Kendra, who works in our local office. And so thanks for being here tonight, Kendra. We have several different programs that allow us to provide technical and in some cases financial assistance to solve these problems. The Watershed Protection and Flood Prevention Program is one that is referred to sometimes as Public Law 566, or the Small Watershed Program. But it was created to help address water problems like you have here. And it was kind of created to fill a gap between those programs where we work with farmers on their fields and farms, but not so big as the major river systems like you see the Corps of Engineers. So kind of in between in these small watersheds to help address problems there. The program is federally assisted. That means NRCS doesn't own or manage the projects at all, just like Mr. Trice was saying. These projects are locally owned, maintained, and operated. And that's why we do require to have local sponsors that carry out those services. This year, additional funding came to us for this program through the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it had a priority on it for assisting underserved communities. With the assistance from the Arkansas Black Mayors Association, we submitted requests for 19 watershed projects in the state that included at least one underserved community in each of those watersheds. Here in Pine Bluff, this is one of the projects that was funded for all 4 phases of the project. And that means there's quite a few steps that have to be carried out before we actually get the construction on the ground. And that's where we all want to get. We want to get that construction on the ground as quickly as possible, but we do have to go through and meet all the federal requirements. And for example, a plan has to be developed, and in that plan, there has to be public meetings like this. There has to be alternatives developed and evaluated. We have to meet the federal requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act and some other things as well. So all I'm saying is it can get a little complicated, it can take a little time, and I think with your input, knowing where the problems are, hopefully with the Black Mayors Association, we'll get the right folks engaged and move just as quickly as possible through each of those steps as we can. We look forward to working with the city, Black Mayors Association, and any other sponsors that may be needed to carry out the project to see that work on the ground just as quickly as possible. Randy Childress is our state point of contact and program manager. If you have any questions, you can certainly give him a call at the local level, Kendra, and certainly myself. We look forward to working with you through this process, and we'll be very excited when we see some construction. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kendra Thomas. I'm the resource conservationist in our local NRCS office. We are located on the second floor of the post office. Our motto is helping people help the land. And here in our local office, we work with private landowners to provide financial and technical assistance. A lot of the producers we work with have crop land, but we have a few that have pasture land and also forest land. Two of our main programs are the EQIP program and the CSP program. EQIP stands for the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and CSP stands for the Conservation Stewardship Program. Locally, we work closely with the Jefferson County Conservation District and other local government agencies such as the Forest Service Agency and the Forestry Commission. Yearly, we have a meeting called the Local Work Group Meeting, where we meet with the Conservation District and other local government agencies to help identify program funding and concerns. Through this meeting, we pick conservation practices that are eligible for cost share through our EQIP program. Some of the popular conservation practices that we fund are seasonal high tunnels, land leveling, irrigation systems, and management practices. This year, through our EQIP program through local and state funds, we have obligated 12 contracts that total over $800,000, and we still have a few left to fund. I bought a few booklets that were on the table, and it kind of describes a little bit more about what we do. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at 870-727-6148. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We're moving right along, and we are a little bit ahead of time. We want to give the 30 minutes for questions and answers. One of the things that I heard Mr. Trice say is that working, we have a council member coming in, Councilmember Lockett. Will you come to the front, please? Thank you. We have Council Member Bruce Lockett, who represents Ward 4. So right now we have both of our Ward 4 aldermen here. Yes, sir. Just any seat on that side. This isn't something that just started overnight, that took place overnight, but we've been working on this for a while, at least 2.5 years ago. And the total amount awarded for these 19 projects, just as an overview of what we've heard, was 19 projects, one of which was Pine Bluff. And Pine Bluff has 4 watersheds, I believe. Am I right on that? Pine Bluff has 4 watersheds, and we've been approved for all 4 phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So that lets us know that this is very serious. I'm going to stop here. I see Mr. Frank Bateman here. Mr. Bateman, why don't you come up to the front, if you'd like. You're good? Okay, all right. Mr. Bateman is our executive director of the Black Mayors Association. So I wanted you to see him. And if you raise your hand so they'll know who you are. All right. Very good. He's been working with us on this initiative as well. And the federal government awarded $96 million for these 19 projects. And of that $96 million, Pine Bluff is receiving $32 million. So the amount of money that we're getting to address this project is very serious. And I'm sure you all heard that multiple work, a lot of work has to be done, which will include plans and designs as we move forward to determine what work would be done. So my question to Mr. Childers, Mr. Sullivan, Sullivan, if we, along the way, once we get the plans moving and we need more work to get the work done for all those phases of the project, will we be able to apply for more money?
Yes.
That's all we need to know.
This is really unusual in that multiple phases are funded all at once, and we don't know what we don't know yet. As we get into developing the plans, we may find that it's a little more complicated and takes a little more money than what was estimated, or it may take a little less. I think the only requirement will be, once we determine that there's additional funding needed, we would have to go through our normal internal request process to request those funds and hope that Congress would allocate the funds nationally where they could then come to us.
Thank you so much. You have something to add to that?
Yeah. One of the things that's important, folks, is that that 32 million is for Pine Bluff. Now, we know that flooding impacts sometimes cause outside the city limits. And so, as Mr. Sullivan was talking about additional stakeholders, those are farmers that are outside the city limits. And so, as a part of the planning process, we will do work to look at downstream impairments that's causing flooding in Pine Bluff. And that's going to be a part of the project development as a part of that planning and design process. Is that clear? And of course, that's going to cost extra money to address those impairments downstream. And that's what Mr. Sullivan is talking about too. But the 32 million is for inside the city limits.
So hearing that, knowing that flooding, yes, impacts inside the city, but to alleviate the flooding, I think we'll have to look at the outlets that lead outside the city as well. So this will involve not just the city working together, but the county as well. So we'll be bringing the county judge and their team on board. Is there anyone here tonight representing the county? I know Judge Robinson is ill tonight, but he was going to have a representative here. But they're on board to work with us in this project as well. Do any of you have questions or concerns, or you want to bring to our attention some areas of flooding in your neighborhoods? Okay. I want you to stand, come to the mic as I identify you, give us your name and give us your neighborhood. And I think Mrs. Emerson is taking notes over there for us, and William may be taking notes as well. So the first hand I saw was Mr. Williams over here.
Good evening. My name is Grant Williams. My address is 6200 Timber Ridge Drive, and that's in Pine Bluff. When it rains, the rain comes about as high as I am, to where I can't get to my mailbox, nor can I get down the street. We've had several people that have several vehicles that have flooded out. And the strange thing is there's two drainages, one in front of my house and one across the street. And this is a serious area. It's been going on, I guess, for about 10 plus years now. Thank you.
That indicates that we have serious problems that need to be addressed. If I make no mistake, is that Deerfield? Ridgeway Road area. Okay. Ms. Williams, you have all that information. Very good. Okay, do we have another speaker? Okay. Come next.
Good evening. My name is Dora Jones, and I am a resident of Deerfield. I don't know if you can see these, but this is my backyard. The day my nephew died, this is what my street looked like, and I could not get to my sister, whose only child had died, and it took me almost 40 minutes to get to her, and she lives right down the street. Okay. This is what prevents me from going to my job, because our street floods so bad inside our subdivision, I can't get to work. When I can't get to work, I can't pay my bills, okay? And we have a cove in the subdivision where I live. That day we had that rain, residents were parked on 73rd, because guess what? We couldn't even get into our homes. That's how bad it gets at Deerfield. So whatever help and assistance that we can gain from this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Let me keep these.
You, sir, you may.
So sorry about that. Residents, I am so proud of you. You can't get any more graphic than that. You came prepared. We thank you for informing us, even with the pictures. Thank you. Our next speaker is Lynette.
I live in Jefferson Heights and on Kendall, and when it rains, Union Avenue can't get through. When it rains, even trying to come back towards Apple Court, I pray that when I come that way, that there's still a little bit of road so that I can get through, because the streets on there flood so bad too. And so if you all can do anything to help us in that area, I will be grateful.
Very good. I think our goal would be to survey the city citywide. That's going to be the goal. Very good. Our next person. I see a hand in the back, very back.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Brainard Bivens. I'm one of the members of the Community Services Office. I also work for Community Service Office. I'm also a proud member of the Arkansas Community Organization. So specifically, we've got, like was discussed, we have areas all over the city, but right now I'm representing Community Services Office at 308 South Lake Street. The back of, it's a Head Start Center right now. And as a matter of fact, the street that's really concerned is Oleander and Blake. Well, Blake and Oleander. As far as there's no ditch there, and it adjourns the school parking lot and actually the street. So right now there's water there. There's water there about 360 days out of the year. There's a ditch across the street by Oleander, but there's no ditch on the Blake Street, well, the street that is in the rear of Blake Street, which is Oleander. And that's my concern because we have children there, and I'd like the city to maybe see what we can do. I appreciate the funding. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for bringing to our attention that area, Orlando and Blake, where we need to give special attention to flooding and drainage problems in that area. Do we have another speaker? Sir, come up. And you follow him. Just stand so when he finishes, you come first, sir. Tell us who you are and where you live. Come on.
I'm Joseph Bucky Maynard. I live in the city limits on Riverside Drive, and I realize our flooding is a little different because it's on Slackwater Harbor. But I say maybe once or twice a year, not only does the road flood where we can't get in and out, but maybe every other year some houses flood. And there's a couple of floodgates on our road, and it looks like they're designed to let the water into our area. It seemed like it ought to be reversed, and where they could let the water out of our area. so I don't understand that. But, like I said, I know it's a different kind of flooding, but I appreciate anything y'all can do.
Good evening. My name is Ukuri Ezieme. I have been in Pine Bluff for a little bit now. Congratulations on the 32 million. That was a big chunk of the 96, so again, congratulations. I have a number of investors that I work with, and they have invested a significant amount of money in the Pine Bluff area. I'm specifically tonight speaking about the corridor of West Barracuda between Pine and Chestnut to the north side. A good landmark will be the former Chaddick building. So right now, every time there's a low drop of rain, that place does not have an outlet. There's a pool of water right there, right now as we speak. On the north side of Barracuda, between these corridors, again now, there is a pool of water right there. There is no outlet. It doesn't have a way to go. And it is surprising to me that there was the recent improvement on that road, and yet to have something like this is a total, I guess, civil engineering issue. And I can speak to that because I'm aware of that. So it would be really, really nice if the investors that are coming into this community can feel comfortable knowing that there's not water intrusion into the properties that they're trying to rehab. Thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Martavius Proctor. I've been a resident here practically all my life. And for the flooding issue, I was hoping someone said it, you know, with the previous residents, but it didn't get said. Hazel Street is one of the major, is one of the key areas where there's a lot of flooding. Specifically the intersection, or the, you know, right there at Hazel Street and West 40th, you know, there's Jefferson Court Place Apartments, and their driveway is literally right there at the stop sign. So it's hard for residents that stay in those apartments to get into, you know, that parking lot. And you try to find a little, you know, way around it, but you end up getting stuck because there's a side street that's also flooded. So that was just one of the areas that I feel as if, you know, should have been mentioned. And so I just bring it to everyone's attention.
I don't know how old Mr. Proctor is, but he looks very young. He informed us that he's been in Pine Bluff all of his life. He's talking about how flooding impacts the travel on Hazel Street. We also know that Hazel is one of the main thoroughfares to our hospital. So it impedes emergency services and families trying to go into the hospital. I see a hand of another speaker.
I'm Norma Ray, Ward 2. That young man took one of the places I was going to suggest or to tell about Hazel Street. It does flood badly. Also, 42nd and Fur floods when it runs real hard. And then on 23rd and Olive, if you're not careful, people who are not familiar with it will go off of Olive onto 23rd and they can flood out.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
I'm James House, and I live at 1000 Deer Run South. And I wanted to emphasize or re-emphasize the areas that we have. Ms. Jones talked about primarily the east side of Deerfield, but we also have the west side. Both sides of Deer Run North, I'll say, flood. When we've got a pretty good problem there, it's probably, we have a little help from some of the other drainage areas coming in there. We have flooded houses before. Gets real deep on the Deer Run west side. It's deep enough that I live right at the intersection where you come into Deerfield, and I have a lot of visitors parking there when it floods. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jill Stewart from the north side of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And I want you to know, when it rains, water comes up into my house, and when you flush the stool, water comes in the house and replaces going out the drain. This is on North Palm Street and Whiteside. And all over the area is floods out. So we really want your help.
We thank you so much for representing the north side, because we know we have some real flooding issues there, as we do all over. I am so proud of the way citizens are stepping up, letting us know that you are concerned, and we're just so happy that we can stand here and say, help is on the way. And we hope that you'll be patient with us. This is not something that can happen overnight. Thank you, Councilmember Brown Sr. I noticed that since we started, if you all would pardon me for a minute, Councilmember Brown Jr. has made his arrival from the second ward representing Ward 2, and then Councilmember Brown Sr. representing Ward 3. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Do we have any other citizens who would like to speak to concerns in your neighborhoods? Mr. Little, when I saw you coming in, I thought you might have a word that you would like to say. They represented you in your neighborhood. Oh, very good. That's your neighbor. Very good. So your concerns have been expressed. Very good. Association. And you're representing that association and representing well. So we thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, very good. Very good. We will have other public meetings. There will be times you let other people in your community, especially the north side and every ward, know that if there are some areas of concern that we have not brought to the forefront tonight, that we'll have opportunities for that to happen. But a survey will be done throughout the whole community. So hopefully a spotlight will be put on all of these areas and then others that were not mentioned. At this time, we're going to have, well, let me stop. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns before I leave the public speaking area? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
I was just going to ask, is there an approximate time when the feasibility study or whatever will commence?
Is there an approximate time when the feasibility studies will commence?
Let me hit one thing before that. So we talked about the 4 phases. Phase 1 is the preliminary investigation stage. That's normally done by the federal agency. Phase 2 is the planning, which normally takes 1.5 to 2 years. Phase 3 is the design, which takes another year, 1.5 years. And then for the construction, it can be 3 to 5 years, depending on the level and complexity of the project. One of the things that we need to mention too is this is 100% money. 100% for the planning, the design, and the construction. The The only thing that the city is responsible for is operation and maintenance once the project is done, and also any land rights issue that may arise. One of the things that you all are gonna have to consider when you start looking at those feasible alternatives is whether you have a Chevrolet project or a Cadillac project. Those Cadillac projects call the operation more through the planning, the design, and the construction too. Did I answer your question?
Good evening. I am Cynthia Anderson, and I just want to take a few moments to share with you information on non-watershed projects that are upcoming for the city of Pine Bluff. I am pleased to announce that the city has approved several sewer extension projects that will take place in the areas of North University Drive, Highway 63, and West 73rd. These are important because not only is it important from a public health, environmental perspective, it's also important from so we're hoping that we will see growth in those areas from businesses and housing development. We also have one other project, and that is the Kansas Street Force Main, and Mr. Johnson will speak more to that in his briefing. And that concludes my briefing.
Stormwater and wastewater awareness, Mr. Kevin Harris.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Harris. I'm the County Extension Agent for Urban Stormwater with the Jefferson County Extension Office. I spent a lot of my time educating youth and adults about what is stormwater, why is water quality important, why is water overall, no matter what team you're rooting for, we can all say participation when the mayor has cleanup events. I also conduct some